Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Yana Johnson, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Air Force is Wing Commander Shane Smith. We warmly welcome the family of driver Thomas Wells, whose story will be told shortly. We welcome the Aussie Specialist Tourism Delegation who are in attendance this evening. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria, and RSL Queensland who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by family, visitors to the memorial, and students on behalf of Wanneroo Senior High School from Western Australia. If able, please stand and join in singing the national anthem.
Australians, oh, let us rejoice, for we are young and free. We've golden soil and wealth for toil, our home is earth by sea. Our land abounds in nature's gifts of beauty rich and rare. In history's page let every state advance Australia fair. In joyful strains then let us sing, advance Australia fair.
Students, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was a vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which he remained true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we'll read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and operations for more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths of floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to driver Thomas Wells. Thomas Wells was born on the 1st of January 1889 to James and Mary Ann Wells of Campbelltown, Tasmania. He was privately educated, possibly at home, and went on to become a farmer in Tasmania. At some point his family broke up, possibly after the death of his father in 1913, and Thomas seems to have spent time living with his sister Mary, whose husband was unable to work much. He contributed financially to her household when he could, and also supported his widowed mother. Thomas Wells enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force in October 1915. He underwent a period of training in Australia before leaving for active service overseas with reinforcements to the 12th Battalion in February 1916. He was first sent to Egypt when the AIF was undergoing a process of reorganisation and training following the evacuation from Gallipoli. As part of this process, Wells was transferred to the 52nd Battalion and 2 months later was sent to France. The 52nd Battalion's first experience of a major offensive on the Western Front came near the French village of Pozières. On the 14th of August 1916, not far from the German-held position called Mouquet Farm. Driver Wells was caught in the blast from an artillery shell and wounded in the back and arm. He was evacuated to a hospital in Rouen for treatment, but was not seriously wounded and returned to his battalion within a month. On his return to 52nd Battalion, Wells was appointed to the rank of driver. He continued serving in this capacity, working at the enormous task of transporting supplies, men, ammunition, guns, and the myriad of requirements of modern war across the battlefield. The task was highly dangerous, and the men regularly came under enemy artillery fire, even though they were a long way behind the front line. In April 1918, the 52nd Battalion participated in slowing the largest German attack mounted against Australian troops in Dernancourt, and later the same month helped to dislodge the enemy in Villers-Bretonneux. Due to heavy casualties and a lack of reinforcements, however, the battalion was disbanded the following month. As part of this process, Wells was transferred to the 49th Battalion. On the 8th of August 1918, the Australian Corps was part of the force that spearheaded the major Allied offensive of the year. The 49th Battalion was drawn into the fighting as the line advanced towards the French village of Étampes in the days after the initial attack. On the 12th of August 1918, driver Thomas Wells was struck in the head by a piece of bursting artillery shell. He was evacuated from the battlefield, eventually reaching hospital in Rouen again. He died there at 3:15 p.m. on the 6th of September 1918. Thomas Wells was buried in the Saint-Sever Cemetery Extension in Rouen, where he lies today under the words, "Still in memory his name is written in the hearts he left at home." He was 30 years old. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, among almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. A photograph of his headstone is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember driver Thomas Wells, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Poziere, or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they'll be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. We thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial, and we wish you all a very good evening.